right, cool. All right, and then can let me open up my OBS, and can you just talk for a little bit so I can try to get the audio balancing?
Yeah, man. So I've been, what do you call it, hearing you on what do you call it, some of your debates on I think what's the other guy's name? Forgot his name, but there was a panel with you, and there's a black guy in the middle. Forgot his name.
Yeah, Prime Kai, Reverie Roundtable.
Yeah. That one. I've been watching you on that one. I've been watching you with Fabian Scott Liberty. I could, what do you call it? Talk to him before as well. So I want to talk to you as well.
Sweet.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, then and then are we talking in general about like Twitch and YouTube politics? Or are we talking about like Israel Palestine? Are we doing both? Are we moving around? What's kind of the
Yeah, let's just start with Israel and Palestine, and then I guess you can talk about whatever you want to talk about as well, about America or yeah.
Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go live. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction just for the people who are showing up into the chat. I normally run for between 45 minutes and an hour and a half, depending on conversational momentum. If we're, talking, we're getting into different subjects, we're moving on to new things, then, we'll keep it flowing as long as it feels natural. And then if it feels like we circled around the same point a few times, or we're kind of, you start getting tired, I start getting tired or whatever, feel free to tap out at any time, or, I'll call it if I feel like I need to tap out. But
Okay.
Are you ready for me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Then I am gonna go live on. Oh, hold on. Let me update this. And then what should I put your name in the title as?
Codename Cervantes.
Nice. I like. I think I forget. There's a couple of Cervantes, but Cervantes is. I think he was one of my favorite characters from a fighting game. I forget what he was.
Yeah, probably Soul Calibur. No, but
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Soul Calibur. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'm the Spanish writer that wrote Don Quixote. That's why.
Nice. All right, so Israel and Twitch politics with code name.
Let me get the skull. Actually, hold up.
Sure. Date all.
It's Halloween, so I had the skull.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it's an actual skull, actually. Yeah.
Oh, sick.
Is
that from like a college or something?
No, I don't know. Look what it costs. Somebody got it from somewhere, but yeah, it's the actual skull. It's a skull of a goat.
Nice. Yeah. All right, sick. Then let me just double check my Skype, make sure that's good to go. Let me start streaming. Okay, then let me just make sure it's actually up. It looks like it's up. All right, good evening, everyone, to the few people as you're coming in. My name is Connor. We're, of course, on the channel Counterpoints and Counterfire. Tonight, we're going to be speaking with codename Cervantes. He is a gentleman who has been consuming some of the Prime Kai Reverie Roundtable content. And I believe, last week, you might have caught my Israel conversation with a gentleman who goes by the name of Mossad. And you reach out to me around that time frame and just said, hey, I want to talk. And, I love talking to people about Twitch and YouTube politics and geopolitics and all that kind of stuff. So I'm happy to have you aboard. Do you want to tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself and what you're all about?
Okay, well, I'm an Ethiopian American, first generation. What else? Yeah, I'm into politics, because we live in crazy times right now. I've traveled around the world. I've been to almost 30 countries. Speak 5 languages, and I'm very well versed in the politics in that region.
What do you mind if I ask what languages?
I speak Spanish, French, English, Amharic, and then some Arabic.
Okay, nice, very cool. So I grew up, I like to think of myself as a relatively smart fellow for only speaking 2.5 languages. So I speak English, but I went to elementary school in Belgium, and so I learned French when I was there. My parents forced me to go to the lycée when I was very young, so I can have a conversation in French. I would consider myself almost fluent, but basically what I do is I take the English grammar and I just translate it one to one into French, and then people kind of know what I'm talking about, so we're able to have conversations. And then with Spanish, I like to stumble my way through Spanish as well, since it's kind of like it's obviously not the same language, but you can see enough related
The
parallels that you can see
similarities,
them
yeah.
going on. Yeah, so they have like similar grammatical structures. Sometimes words are similar, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's fun. But yeah, no, that's really cool. And then, do you mind if I ask what you do professionally or personally or academically that kind of led you down that path?
What do you call it? On politics or just
Yeah, like why would you bother learning five languages, and why would you bother learning about politics unless it was academically or professionally related?
well, like, languages is just me traveling and just picked it up and from school as well.
Mhm.
Like, I learned it in school, like the French at least, I learned it in school.
Mhm.
Outside of that, just like, falling in love, traveling in Latin America, that get me into Spanish. And yeah, the rest is just, it just came up to be. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah,
And
no, exposure is the best teacher. So yeah.
yeah. But yeah, politics, we just, you have to kind of learn about politics, man. You can't just be what you call it, not unless you want to, you're a rich person, or, you can, I think every, what you call it, common person, every, what you call it, person that is
I would
not
say
rich.
I would say peasant or proletarian or normal person or commoner. Like,
Yeah, yeah, you have to be involved in politics because you can't just shut it down and say, oh, that's no, that doesn't bother me. I just want to, watch football, go to work, and
mhm.
come back. Because nowadays it involves all of us. Now, unless you're rich and you can, just can ignore it, and because it doesn't affect you, you can do that. But if you don't have that kind of money, I think it would be foolish to ignore politics.
No, I'm with you. I think the my main concern is being effective, though. So I think that you can spend a lot of time and a lot of passion doing a lot of research and finding out a lot of things, and basically you can study like the history of the world effectively in order to understand everything. But then you're just one asshole screaming on Twitter about your perspectives, and as a result, like your ability to have effects is kind of limited. I'm working on that myself. Like I'm trying to up my cloud and my relevance and all that kind of stuff so I can have a larger effect, but obviously it's very easy to scream into the wind. So speaking of screaming into the wind, did you did you have any hot takes on Israel and Palestine and the way the situation evolved and devolved and where we're at now?
Yeah, it's one of the, what do you call it, the hot button issues that, that's dividing the, what do you call it, I think the whole world. And yeah, but
Right now, the whole world, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so, and it should, but my problem with it, especially right now, it's in, what do you call it, the so-called former free speech advocates, the Republicans, the conservatives talking about, oh yeah, free speech absolutists. Dave Rubin, what's that guy? Douglas Murray. He's talking about, oh yeah, like you should kick people out for being pro-Palestinian. It's pro-Hamas. Like bar none is pro-Hamas. Kick them out of the country. There's what do you call it? There's students in Harvard losing their jobs, and I saw
Well,
this today actually. There was like, I don't know who did this. I think it was the ADL. They basically hired a U-Haul truck with the faces of the students, and they're going through the
mhm.
neighborhood say this person supports Hamas or something, whatever. It's fucking ridiculous, man. So
Well, the I'm still pretty First Amendment. I'm still pretty free speech, freedom of conscience, and all that kind of stuff. But you might see, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter or whatever, but I am shit posting about it because, like, we've heard from progressives, and I'm sorry that Muslims who support Palestinians are just a chess piece on the board to be played. But you're the chess piece to be played on the board right now when it comes to like free speech and the limits of free speech, because we had progressives for a decade saying like, this isn't cancel culture, this is consequence culture, and we're not, the government isn't getting involved, so it isn't that big of a deal if private institutions harass you. It's not that big of a deal if private institutions deplatform you. So what I would say, it's not so much that I want free speech to go away, although Dave Rubin, I'm sure, has said some pretty dumb things, but it's not that I want free speech to go away. It's that I want lefties who were
mhm.
very cavalier about how dangerous a scared society that is scared to speak its mind, how dangerous that can be. And now that the shoe is on the other foot and they're experiencing some of those consequences, um, you know, enjoy the pain, because that's what conservatives have been complaining about for 5, 10 years.
Yeah, I got you, but but the point is though, it's just like, yeah, when the establishment, you feel this narrative will let you, what do you call it, like, free flow, like, especially like, the LGBTQ agenda is like, it's just like, what's her name, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU, like, they were chastising, Viktor Orban, Hungary, it was such a, what do you call it, the establishment was pushing for that. So whenever is that kind of, what do you call it, dividing, but the establishment wants it, they go for it. But this the establishment doesn't want. So at the end of the day, it is the establishment that decide what is what is what, what is, what do you call it, copacetic, what is not copacetic, what is, allowed, what is not allowed. So that's at the end of the day, that's who allows it. So it's not the left or the right.
Well, I would say, well, I would hope in the United States it would be everybody, because when it's everybody, at least the principle behind the First Amendment is the fact that anybody can say anything whenever they want to, as long as they're not specifically advocating for violence. And then even with violence, can a general political statement like "I want fascism" or "I want communism" or "I want an authoritarian government," can that be a call to violence? And in a sense, it is, because you're calling for the state to become more authoritarian, but you're not specifically going up to people and trying to hurt them. So that's where it gets really, the lines get a little bit blurry. And what I would say is the concern when it comes from the Western world, because I mean, I've been in the political community or the political commentary space as a consumer probably since 2010, 2015. Like, it depends on what you mean. But anyways, like, at least since 2015, back when a lot of people were anti-Muslim immigrant, like anti-immigrant from the Middle East and North Africa, the concern was that there are a large amount of people who are sympathetic to theocratic governments, and there are people who are sympathetic to jihadist terrorism. And when you bring them into a liberal society, those guardrails don't really work, because if people are advocating openly for political violence, well, that's fair under a liberal system. And that's kind of what Dave Rubin and Lauren Southern and a few other anti-immigration pundits were talking about. And now we're reaping those consequences.
Yeah, well, like, immigration is such a hot topic as well. Like, that's we can have what I call a whole hour discussion on immigration. So I don't want to go there. But concerning about the Israeli and what do you call it, Palestinian issue, what is your point of view? I want to get that straight. I heard some of it, like, but I just want to know. I just want to get clear. Like, what is your point of view?
Yeah, so my perspective is that I think that Islam has and by the way, like, I know not everybody's religious and it's geopolitical and all that kind of stuff, but I think people who are ignoring the religious component of this are I think they're joking to themselves, basically.
Okay.
So I think that Jews, if you look at their history, it's basically that they founded one of the most impactful monotheistic religions, and they did so by conquering, Jerusalem, Judea, Israel, all that kind of stuff. Then they got.
They funded it from I'm just going correctly, but I thought Moses funded it though. They didn't conquer it, like God gave it to them. And we're going by the, what they call the text, So Moses got kicked, like, he saved the people from Egypt. They went to Israel, and God gave it to them. They didn't conquer it. I didn't think that was
Well, there was the city of Jericho, and there was also the Canaanites, who were people who lived there before the Jews were there, and they did destroy their cities, kill their cattle, take their women. And I think there was even an entire city where God said that this city is so evil, don't even take their livestock, kill their livestock. So they killed like every man, woman, and child and livestock in that one city. I forget which one it was, but the walls of Jericho, if I remember correctly, if that was part of Exodus, then they walked around it for so long, and they blew these trumpets, and then the walls of Jericho came crumbling down and all that kind of stuff. And so there's the mythological component to it, and then there's the real world component to it. And if you'll indulge me like a second, I would like to expand on that. I've read a lot of secular historians, and secular historians agree that there was a Semitic exodus recorded in Egypt around the year 1200 before Christ. And so
Mhm.
they believe that it wasn't like, hundreds of thousands or millions of people. They don't think it was that, but they do think that it was probably the Jewish exodus out of Egypt and back into, modern day Israel. And then when you're talking about that conquest, you're talking about, 1,000 years before Christ. So there's a whole bunch of history there, but we have history and mythology all mixed up together at the same time.
Yeah.
But because Judaism, is one of Zoroastrianism is a timeline contemporary to Judaism. But I think because Judaism was along the coast, where it's the crossroads of North Africa and Europe, and also if you want to go to Asia, you pretty much have to go through Israel or Judea or wherever. Since it's the crossroads of humanity, that's why the Jews had such a large cultural impact as the first like prominent monotheistic religion. And
Mhm.
so when you look at, bring that all the way to Christians, bring that all the way to the Babylonian exile, the Persian exile, all that kind of stuff. Effectively, what happens is because Jews are at the crossroads of humanity and they're an insular society, they kind of section themselves off, and people don't like that. So the Romans didn't like that. The Greeks didn't like that. The Babylonians didn't like that. The Persians didn't like that. They were like, oh, you're smug. You're pieces of shit. You're rebels. You won't bow to our gods. You won't bow to our kings. Go fuck yourself. And
Mhm.
so the Israelites and the Jews, they got killed a whole bunch and displaced a whole bunch. And that happened throughout history, pretty much up until like 1100 when the Crusaders did it, the Christian Crusaders.
Mhm.
And so Jews spread everywhere, all over the world, from the
Mhm.
Babylonian exile to the Crusader exile, all over the world, the survivors spread. And
Mhm.
what happened was Muslims treated Jews better, but Christians persecuted Jews aggressively because they
Mhm.
were redundant. History didn't need them. The Messiah has already come. The Jews don't know what they're talking about. They're a religious sect that doesn't matter anymore. And then that kind of culminated in World War II, which has like a secular race realist component where the Jews are like I'm just speaking from Hitler's
That's more or
perspective.
less, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Ethnicity and yeah.
yeah, they're a parasitic culture that infects, like Russia and Germany and all that kind of stuff, and they're here to spread communism and socialism, and they destroy the concept of a nation because they don't want to be perceived as ethnically separate from everybody else, and it's all a giant manipulation to be avoided and persecuted. And so you basically have the Holocaust, which is the largest mass slaughter of ethnic Jews in history to date that I know of. And
Yeah.
so Europeans feel bad because they either did it or they allowed it to happen, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the Ottoman Empire collapsed in like the tens. So there's
No,
not
1920s, I think, no, 1920s, yeah, the World War One.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, sorry. So I thought World War One, at least what I thought was like 11 to 14 or something, but I don't know. It's all pre World War II, right? That's the
Yeah.
main thing. So early
Yeah.
20th century.
Yeah.
The Ottoman Empire collapsed, and so there was a lot of disruption and kingdoms and warlords and people in the former Ottoman world. And so the British and the Europeans are like, hey, yeah, sorry about trying to kill all of your people. Why don't you guys go ahead and take a part of Israel? And then that's been the problem for the past 100 years. That's actually, I know that took me forever to get there, but I feel like that's the context leading up to the modern day problems.
Mm. Well, yeah. So let me just put like little holes in there. For example, number one, the problem I think that people do right now is put what do you call it, modern day Jews, especially who comes from like from Slavic countries and northern Germany and etc. As the same people that were there, like and I don't know how many years ago that was.
1200 before Christ. So yeah, 3,000
Yeah,
years ago, 2,000 years ago.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. So not all of those people. So for example, there's the Kfang Jews. Kfang Jews are Chinese Jews, which look like like Chinese people. So
Mhm.
you can't compare that person to Zelensky, for example, or the Rothschild in England, or for that matter, those people to the Ethiopian Jews, which are very black. Actually, are black, but anyway, yeah. So black Jews and etc. So the problem, like you said, like Muslim countries were very good to Jews, and they're not the only what they call it culture or religion that is very insular. For example, Druze as well. Druze, if you know those people, the little offshoot of I don't know what they are. It's like they're strange people, but I don't know what their religion. They keep to themselves. So I don't know what their religion is, but I think they're a strange offshoot from Islam. But they keep to themselves. They don't marry outside of their religion, and they keep everything in the family. Uh, anyway, but there's that. There's the Samaritans, which are like old Jewish people as well, which the Jews don't accept, but as being Jewish. But I think they read like even older version of the Torah, and they're basically Arabs, and they live in Palestine, or Israel nowadays. And there are those people. Who else? The Yazidis as well. So there's a very, what do you call it? It's a diverse place. Yeah, of course. The
Of
empire.
course.
Yeah, I'm not saying like the empire didn't have its problems. Of course, especially the Ottoman Empire has a lot of problems, especially against what do you call it, Armenians and other people over there. But at the end of the day, they didn't attack the Jews. So what is going on today? What is so different today? Why is Israel such a, what do you call it? Why is everybody opposing Israel? Why is everybody would try to, what do you call it, jump on Israel throat? Is it because they're Jewish? I think not. That's not the question here. I think because this is what do you call it? First of all, the Jewish people, like most of them, I think that created the state of Israel, see themselves as European because like those two, what do you call Theodore Herzl, yeah, Theodore Herzl,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah. So I think there was two thinking at this at the time of him. Like there was the Zionist, and I think there was a Jewish Bund. The Jewish Bund wanted to have a homeland. They thought of themselves as European, and they wanted to, like, what they call get respected in Europe, and what they call want to have a basis in Europe. The Zionists didn't see there was no place for them in Europe, and they were right actually because this was before Hitler, but they were Theodor Herzl was saying like, hey man, shit is getting hot over here. I didn't think he was saying as bad as the Holocaust, but they were saying something's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Jewish Bund saw their place in Europe, and they wanted, I don't know, wanted to integrate with the European community, but that didn't work out. So yes, that didn't work out, but these are not. You can't say these people belong in the Middle East because these people, most of them actually at the beginning saw themselves as Europeans, and most of them are Europeans. Actually, I don't think you can look what they call it. If you talk to somebody like what's the name, Lex Friedman, is he Jewish or is he Middle Easterner? I mean, is he Slav or is he Middle Easterner? Because
Well,
that's
yeah, and this gets into the challenge of Jewish definition because like a lot of people are like, oh, it's an ethnicity. Well, obviously it doesn't match with the ethnicity if you have a bunch of people who are of varied ethnicities. Well, it's a religion. Well, not every Jew who identifies as a Jew actually follows the religion. A lot of them, some of them are Orthodox, some of them are secular. Jon Stewart, he's a very prominent comedian news person in the United States. He's like, I'm a bagel Jew. And they're like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, I did my bar mitzvah, I eat bagels, I talk to other Jews sometimes, but like that's about as far as it goes, So like that's his total he has like a vague alliance to his ethno-religious heritage, but he doesn't really he doesn't make it the sole corner of his identity. And so what I would say to your perspective,
okay. One last thing though, I just like, so
sure.
example, okay. So like a lot of the Jews I met as well, like in Europe as well, so these people have European passports, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and Israel's part of UEFA, which is the Euro Cup and Eurovision as well, and these people feel at home with other Europeans, and they want to, what they call it, go to Norway. Some of them have Norwegian passports, some of them have English passport.
Oh yeah,
None of
Israel.
those
I
people.
want to say I don't remember the exact percentage, but Israel is one of the countries that has like the largest number of dual citizens on the planet. And so it's like in the United States, like Mexico and Israel, like per capita, there's like a huge amount of dual citizens. But so you're saying that they're European or whatever. So let's say
The
like
Ashkenazi Jews that came over there with that ideology, because their ideology, and their mentality was so warped by the trauma they suffered. Yeah, because the
yeah.
trauma they suffered, they wanted, that's where the Zionism came from. So it's not what they call, the Ethiopian Jew doesn't have that kind of mentality that
Listen,
his
I
birthplace is in me.
I have a joke solution, but then I kind of want to press you on this. So
Okay,
my
right.
joke solution is like I don't give a shit. Like Jews just need to be safe. They need to be able to worship. They need to be able to feel like there isn't going to be like an impending massacre. And in order to feel like they don't have an impending massacre, they need some level of military autonomy. I don't give two flying shits if we establish the state of Israel in Nevada or Canada or some bumfuck place that nobody really gives a shit about. But hey, make it beautiful, give them access to water and all sorts of crazy shit. Give them all the shit they need in order to survive and thrive. I don't care if Israel is in Wyoming as an example, right? But Israelis do, right? And
Yeah,
so let's just say that I take for granted that the Zionist project is a ethnically diverse, mixed, some people are secular, some people are religious, some people are European, some people are Ethiopian, all that bullshit. Let's just take all of that as a grain of salt. What would you sincerely ask or think it's politically possible to just ask like the Israeli European Jews to be like, hey, this was fun, but the past 100 years have been fucked up. So why don't y'all all go back to Europe? Like, do you think that's politically possible?
no, but like what you call it, the other problem as well, but it's not the what you call it, maybe not that's not politically possible, but what they're doing as well is what you call it, it is I think tantamount to what you call it to suicide, and tantamount as well to what you call it to breathing hatred that I don't think they even what you call it, experience in Europe because what do you call it? They from their suffering and their what do you call their oppression in Europe, what they took from it is to become more imperialistic, like the other European, like the Christian Europeans. And when the colonialists, like so, they did it really late, So when the colonial and the imperial, what do you call it, building was at its end, when the people were getting freed in the 1960s and etc. They went in there and created a European colonialist state that oversaw the land and basically tried to become the head honcho in that region, like South Africa did the Boers did in South Africa, the
Right.
Afrikaners. So they did that like in the late stage of imperialism and colonialism. So at that same time, what they call it, many Arab countries were getting their freedom and what they call it, their new they call it wataniya, which is like what they call it, independence. Uh, so
Yeah,
whether
they're
it's
forming
Egypt,
their national identities, and some of them are secular, and some of them are Islamist, and there's a interesting blend
actually,
between all of them.
yeah, but a lot of them were secularists, though. Like, I mean, very few, except maybe Saudi Arabia, which was never
In
colonized.
Turkey,
But
yeah.
Turkey, I think, was secular, no? It was under
No, it
Ataturk.
was. Sorry if I misunderstood you, but I forget the Turkish ruler's name. I think his last name was Ataturk. But him, and then also if I remember correctly, the Baathists in Syria and Iraq, they were also pan-Arab, meaning that they rooted ethnicity as more important than religion, which was actually like kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
and they were seculars, and they were pro-Soviet, for socialistic, yeah.
which which is actually really funny watching the evolution of Saddam and Iraq, because what happened, if I remember correctly, sorry for the side tangent, but the United States
Hmm.
did a trade embargo and what do you call it, like a flyover zone over Iraq, and so Iraq felt isolated from its neighbors because it could no longer trade with people and all that kind of stuff. So Saddam said, hey, in order to consolidate power, I need all my generals and military people and all that kind of stuff, I need you to reach out to the Sunni Islamic leaders so we can build like a base of power in the Sunni religious group. And then what ended up happening was a lot of his higher up military officials, they converted to being like devout, Muslims. And then as a result, there was an alliance between the secular Baathist military that started
Hmm.
out kind of anti-religious,
Hmm.
and then they became more religious because they became more they needed the power of the Sunni clerics to help them consolidate power in Iraq, which is a total political irony.
Yeah, but that is not a political iron. That is the sadness. I mean, like what I'm not talking about what they call it, Saddam Hussein, but there
Yeah,
was a time. There was a time under the leadership of Jamal Abdel Nasser, which was like the what they call it, the leader of the somewhat so like one of the leaders of the Arab people. Jamal Abdel Nasser, Colonel Gaddafi, and etc. But especially Jamal Abdel Nasser with his writing and etc. There was a time of euphoria, I would say so, after I guess what do you call it, the freedom of Algeria and the other freedoms that under a secular state, under what they call it, their own people's leadership, they could become what they call progressive, and what they call it, like Lebanon was called the Paris of the Middle East, and etc.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a time of what do you call it, that people dreamed that the Arab world
Yeah,
could be a
peace and prosperity and material technological development. And it's not like there's not wealth in the Middle East. Holy shit. They literally
yeah,
sit on 2/3 of the world's proven oil reserves. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
but like liberal democracy and what do you call it, and secularism seem to be hollow at the end of the day. But what do you
they
call it,
relatively
they
speaking
work
are.
out. Huh?
I'm saying they relatively speaking are. That's one of the thing about like I'm an apologist for like liberal hegemony and like liberal American empire and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is that it's not enough. It's not enough to say like, yeah, go buy a Funko Pop and eat really good food and sleep with as many people as possible until you die. That's not enough for the human soul. And so
Mm.
when you look at the collapse of like Western identity, European identity, or whatever, I think that partially comes up from the contradictions in the definitions of Western identity and European identity, because we've had a very conflicted history. But also, I think it comes from the fact that increasingly society is secular, and they find that hedonism and nihilism and all that kind of stuff is not enough to sustain a society. So our cornerstone, our foundation, I think liberalism is a fantastic way to govern a
Mhm.
whole host of different kinds of people who, relatively speaking, shouldn't get along.
Mhm.
But I don't think it gives those people enough to have fulfilled lives.
Yeah, it's true. But the reemergence of Islam, though, there's also what they call it. There's a what they call it, because of the failure of the secularists, of course, in the Middle East, but also because of what they call it, of meddling, number one, of the United States and the supporting of jihadists by the United States and Israel as well. That's one of also the reasons those things came to be, because as we have seen recently that there's been paperwork that came out that said that Israel supported Hamas because what they call it, to be a counterweight, because at the time the biggest enemies were PLO, which was a secular organization, and PFLP, which was led by two Christians actually, Wadi Haddad and George Habash,
Mm.
which were Christian Palestinians. And yeah, so to counterweight those, they supported jihadists, which became even more of a fearsome what they call it, enemies than their what they call it, than the secular what they call it, secular people, which they can negotiate with. So my problem is this: so they had the people to negotiate with. They had people, okay, like yeah, of course, it's hard for people to negotiate with, because this is why I'm on the side of the Arabs, because yeah, it's a colonialist state, like it's a foreign state. That's what I'm saying. Like these people wouldn't be like what they call treating them like like such antibodies if there were like the original Jews that came from there, and like the Jews that are originated from that region, because the Yemeni Jews lived there for centuries, nobody touched them. Same with the Moroccan Jews, same with the Baghdadi Jews, and etc. Actually, the Sassoon family, I don't know if you know them, they're like the Rothschild of Baghdad. They made they're one of the wealthiest people over there. So
But yeah, there's a problem, but I'll let you finish the idea and then I'll bring up the problem.
yeah, so yeah, the reason, like what you call it, the Druze, the Shias, the secularists, the Christians, and whomever. I mean, like you can pick whoever like in that bowl, like whatever ethnic minority you want to put in that bowl, or whatever ethnicity you want to put in the Middle East. All of them are diametrically opposed to Israel. That's why I don't like this lie, this propaganda that only because of Islamists, only because of jihadists, only because of Hamas. I mean, like there's more people that oppose what Israel than just the Islamists, man. I mean, like there was even the Red Army Japanese that even like fought against Israel, and the Red Army faction Germans as well, and Christians, and even Druze, and even like Baathis as well. So
No,
not
I think
yeah.
I think there's a common sense rejection for the state of Israel, but I think that the reason why it's not going there's a reason why it's not going to win. Like the rejection of Israel is not going to win.
Mhm.
And there's also like a foundational antagonism between Islam and Christianity and Judaism, which I think is like fundamental to the religion. And I understand that like
But
different people. different people perceive like religion, and they hold it within like different levels of like fervency. I understand that completely. But I would just say that like there is a, like I've read the Quran, I've read a few historical texts. I read, things fall or why things fall apart or something like that. It was by, a historian who studied, Middle East and North Africa for a prolonged period. But the point being that like in Christianity, the divinity of Christ can't be doubted, right? Like that's the cornerstone of the religion. Now, increasingly, Christianity is seen as like internally contradictory, and as a result, more and more people are being secular and no longer religious, et cetera, et cetera. But the Christian world, like Western Europe or Europe in general, and then the Americas as a colonial project of Europeans, that is still like a foundational cornerstone of Christianity, is that you have to believe in the divinity of Christ. Then also that is preeminent. So that means that like Muslims can be good people, but since you don't believe in the divinity of Christ, then you might be Abrahamic, but you're a lesser Abrahamic, right? If you are a religious literalist. Then when it comes to Jews, they're God's chosen people, and like I'm speaking like an asshole for a different person's perspective, but I'm going to anyways. The Jews, they're God's chosen people, and me as a descendant of Christianity and you as a descendant of Islam, we're just praying pretend that we know Jehovah, and Allah is Jehovah or God is Jehovah or whatever. We're just joking. We're insane goyim who are outside of the religion, who are jealous of the Israel and Jews' chosen status as God's chosen people, and as a result, we're pretenders. And then what I would say in Islam, like Islam actually does have a relatively conciliatory position when it comes to Jews and Christians, but it's people of the book, and the hierarchy is clear, which is that Jews, they're a minority, they're smaller, they're less powerful. Certain sects of them have conspired against the prophet and, the people and all that kind of stuff. So as a result, like when bad shit pops off with Jews or whatever, they're effectively second-class citizens amongst the people of the book. And then when it comes to Christians don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like Christ's divinity is a mistake. It's a theological mistake. Christ was an important prophet, and he understood important things, and you should study his life, and you should understand what he did and what he communicated to the people. But mistaking Christ for God himself is a mistake. And so as a result, Christians are also lesser than on the hierarchy. So what I would say is this was assumed through the Ottoman Empire. I would say probably up to the Battle of Vienna. It seemed like Muslims would rule the world. That literally, like you have from Morocco to Malaysia, you have Islamic belief just conquering the world, and you also have incursions into Europe. So it just seemed like Islam was going to dominate the world. But then Europeans and Jews got real crafty, and we got a bunch of crazy technology. And in the past,
it was not what
doing wild shit.
But it's not. But it's not just what do you call. I don't think you can put Jews on that one, because just like of course there was some.
I think you can for Israel, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like I mean at the end, but I'm just saying for the conquest of the world, or like at the industrial age and before the colonialism world, you just like it was mostly a Christian affair. It was what do you call it, the conquistadores. I don't think there were Jews that came with them to convert people. There was probably Jews. It depends.
There, when you get really anti-Semitic, I'm not particularly anti-Semitic. I have lots of Jewish friends. I like lots of Jewish people. But there's some people who like Nick Fuentes, the Groypers or whatever. They argue that colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade was Jews who were conquered and converted to Christianity during the Reconquista in Spain, and so it was actually like a 10,000 IQ play to get like they weren't really converts. They imported Africans into the United States of America and into Europe in order to fuck over Europeans. So like it depends on how anti-Semitic you want to get, but I don't think Jews are smart. I don't think they're that smart.
Nah, I'm not going to that kind of bullshit territory, man. Of racist. Like, I'm not talking about any racist bullshit right now. Like I'm trying to just what do you call? I'm not no racism for me, man, against anybody here.
You're trying to make
So
sense of the modern world as best you can. I got you.
yeah, yeah,
I wanted to share that because it was an interesting insight I bumped into recently.
yeah.
But yeah. So no, I would agree that colonialism during the post-Renaissance colonial industrial age was largely a European affair, and then the nation state of Israel was on the very tail end of that movement, where from, I don't know, maybe the 1600s to the late 20th century, it was relatively culturally normal to conceptualize yourself as like an ethnicity, like I'm French, I'm German, I'm English, whatever, and
Mm.
we're going to take a part of the world, we're going to get the natural resources, we're going to send it back to our host country, and maybe we'll do some cool things here, but also if people try to fight us here, we're going to kill them all. Like that was very normal for probably 400 or 500 years.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, in most places it works, except certain places, but like Afghanistan, but that's always been the story. But over there, and Ethiopia, man, as well, was never colonized, but and most places it worked. But what I want to say though, uh, yeah, the problem nowadays though with the Israeli stuff though, it's that what do you call it? Like I said before, that they could have made peace with the secularists, but they didn't make peace with the secularists. They still wanted to pay the imperial project. They still want to be the big dog in the Middle East. And this is the Middle East is no what do you call it? Is no foreign to empires like the Ottoman Empire, the Umayyad,
Caliphates, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
the caliphates, I mean, if you look at the maps of the caliphates, it's basically like expansion and regression, and it's from historical places like Iran or Persia, Egypt, or Baghdad. Like
yeah.
you just see the expansion and regression over and over
Yeah,
again for
and
the.
these people are looking at these people like these foreigners like who the fuck are these guys coming in here and and telling us what to do and there's American bases here, my American bases there, and then Israel is at what they call the fortress over there in the Middle East that where and this seems like where all the evil's coming from. So you can be what they call a Middle Eastern power, but you have to be Middle Eastern. That's the problem with these people. I say sorry for using these people, but that's the problem with Israel. If you want to be a power of in the Middle East, and if you want to be part of the Middle East, you have to choose to be part of the Middle East. You can't just be UEFA and then Eurovision and then also what it called, I always want to live in Europe and be friends with Europeans and etc. No, if you Turkey was foreign conquest as well. The Turkish people are not from the Middle East either. They're from Central Asia.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, they were
Yeah, but
conquerors.
that's
Yeah, they
well
were
in
conquerors too. Yeah, but
yeah.
they came there, yeah, and they came there, but they got respect from the people, and they were able to rule the people, not just because they were great warriors. Yeah, that's one of the things. Yeah, they were great warriors. They were great, siege engine builders, great military tacticians, and etc. Yeah, that is no doubt. Yeah, I think they're
But they were good
partially
diplomats as
Mongol.
well.
Yeah, they're partially Mongolian too. I don't know, whatever. They're descendants of Mongolian, something like that. The Turks, but. As they say, the Turco-Mongolian. But the thing is, though, they had to have legitimacy in that region. And to have that legitimacy, yes, well, number one, they adopted the faith, which is a big thing. But number two, they tried to what do you call it, reason with the people and try to legitimize themselves by becoming part of the society. And they treated the people over there like their own. They didn't act like what do you call it. They didn't act like some foreign overseer, like some crow over there, and then just bitch slapping people. That can work for maybe 100 years, 200 years, 300 years maybe, but sooner or later that thing is going to fall. And when that thing is going to fall, there will be hell to pay. That's what I'm trying to say about Israel. Sooner or later, America is not going to have your back. And when that happens, woe to you.
Yeah, so that's actually like a really interesting point, because if you look because the question is what's going to run out fast or first. International support for Israel, largely headed by the United States and a few European countries or whatever. And then, or is it going to be mass immigration of Middle Eastern and North African folk into Europe and into the United States, who then wield political influence to be like, hey, Like, yeah, Jews are cool, but Israel's a bunch of fucking assholes, and you're spending money to kill my former countrymen. So as a result, I'm going to vote in a different direction, and then it's going to make it politically unpalatable to support Israel in their colonial project. What I would say, though, what I see as likely, when I was speaking with Mossad last week, no, it wasn't Mossad, it was Ali. So what Ali was saying was, why would the Jews ever stop expanding? Why would they ever stop? Because basically they've already gotten away with taking a majority of the West Bank. They've already gotten away with taking away a majority of the Palestinian territory. So if Lebanon is to the north and Egypt is to the west, and Saudi Arabia is to the south, or whatever the fuck is there, and Jordan is to the east, why would they ever stop? And so my answer is probably a sense of self-preservation. Also, like you said, American support is not unlimited, and European support is not unlimited. Our support is partially contingent on the fact that Jews have had a rough shake, and as a result, they need a homeland where they can be secure. If we see consistently that they're just expanding into other territories, what makes them any different than the aggressors who have gone against them in the past, like Nazi Germany? And so this is where what I would say is likely, at least in my book. Maybe I'm stupid. I don't know. What I think is going to happen is Gaza is going to be under military control. They're gonna wipe out Hamas. Anybody who pledges allegiance to Hamas or whatever, they're just going to kill them. If they'll side with whoever you were talking about, the Palestinian organizations that were potentially willing to negotiate. Those Palestinian organizations are going to be viewed as puppets by locals because Israel has their, hand on their neck, basically. If Israel is smart, then they would develop that territory as if it was their own so they could buy goodwill and peace with their neighbors. If they're not smart, then they'll make the conditions there so poor that it causes like a Gazan exodus, so a shitload of people leave. But then that also ruins the narrative as Israel and Jews as the victims of history who need their own homeland. And then as a result, I think taking territory in the West Bank and having American support becomes that much more unlikely.
I think what do you call it? Okay, I want to push on this one. So I think number one, the Europeans and the Americans are not supporting Israel because of goodwill of or sanctimonious reasons, or of their bleeding heart. That's maybe, I don't know, 10%, 20%. But the majority of it, I think, is because Israel is pretty smart. They have a lot of dirt on a lot of people. They have a lot of what they call shady shit, on people's. I don't know what Mossad does.
I want to push back on you, but literally,
no, but
like,
let me just finish.
Jeffrey Epstein. Hold on, Jeffrey Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Literally was selling underage prostitutes to powerful people across the world, and his father-in-law, I forget his name. What's his girlfriend's name? I forget his girlfriend's.
Robert
Maxwell is the dad. So his father-in-law was like a triple agent for Russia, the United States, and Israel. And he sold information all three ways. And he got public applause from England, and he got public applause from Israel because he was doing the same shit.
But he was also one of the biggest, what do you call it, the media
mogul empires. Yeah, he was like, he was simultaneously like a Bernie Madoff, because Bernie Madoff did the pyramid scheme shit. So Robert Maxwell did a pyramid scheme, but he was also a media mogul. So he was like the head of Fox, like that's who he's similar to. And then he was also running Intel for 3 different countries, and he was playing to whoever's advantage he thought it was advantageous to him. And there's also there's skepticism. He drowned in off of his boat. During some area. And there's some skepticism about whether or not he was having a conversation before he drowned.
Because he was a shady person. When a shady person dies, you say, why did people kill him? Like same thing with Jeffrey Epstein. Why did he die?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of shady stuff going on between Israel and America, and that is the reason why we still haven't abandoned them. It's not because we like them so much or we think, and there's a lot of power they have as well, like whether it is that APAC, American Israeli, like whatever it's called. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but anyway, American
Yeah.
Israeli something. Yeah.
No,
So
but it's
there's that one.
it's a powerful lobbying group. There's a lot of people who are in our our House of
Banking as
Representatives
well,
and our
like what do you
Senate and
call
all
it?
that kind of stuff, who are boys with APAC. So
Yeah.
when you see Democrats, when you see Republicans, when you see everybody tweeting that they stand with Israel and fuck Hamas and like all that kind of stuff, I'm sure some of that is genuine. Like I had that genuine feeling because if you kill civilians, then I want people to hunt you down and kill you. But there's also something to be said for the fact that their interest in Israel is likely partially compensated for.
Yeah, like,
So
Israel is it's no slouch, and that's the reason it's not to be fucked with. Like they're not abandoning it.
But aren't you kind of making like a pause? Like I know that you're using it for criticism because of like power and all that kind of stuff, but aren't you also kind of making an argument for like why Israel does what it does? Because when you say that like, and I'm not saying you specifically, but I'm saying
Mm,
when people hear from the river to the sea, they
mm,
assume that they want Palestinian slash Muslim control of all of the territories between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean. And so
yeah.
as a result, that means that the state of Israel would no longer exist. So that government would have to be wiped out and there would be people who would need to fight it. Then there would likely be Jews in the state of Israel who are not sympathetic to being ruled by Palestinians. And so as a
Mm,
result, they would resist. And so they would get killed as well.
mm,
Then you would also be talking about probably a mass exodus because, like you said, a lot of these people come from different ethnicities all over the world. So they would likely relocate to whatever place they thought was most likely to take them.
mm.
And so you just go down this logic chain. And for an American or a European, because of World War II, basically, we're going to stop it before it even gets that far. Like Israel is probably going to maintain its current borders pretty much no matter what.
Well, like I mean, there has been a precedent of this kind of a foreign incursion in the Middle East in the same area actually within the Crusaders. I don't know what decade it was, but Salahuddin, he came in there, and
Yeah.
the Crusaders that took over that land, they basically butchered everybody that was in
Yeah,
Jerusalem.
the Crusader Kingdom states and Saladin basically kicked their ass and they picked up their tents and went home.
Yeah, but like they didn't kill all the Christians though. They killed they kicked out all the Crusader kings and whatever, and and they paid. I think they had to pay their way out actually, but and some of them that couldn't pay their way out were sold as slaves.
It was civilized for the time. Like
I mean,
it might have been hardcore for us, but for them it was civilized. Yeah.
even at nowadays, people Salahuddin and and Richard the Lionheart.
Yeah.
They're how they fought and how gentlemanly they were. You would never see that nowadays. Actually, we are more brutal. Actually, I don't think people can
But
be
yeah,
gentlemen.
that chivalry in English, and then and I would say like yeah, that's one of the things that's missing is that the Middle East and North Africa to Americans, anyways, is like
For
Narnia.
anybody. Yeah, it's in
No,
anybody right now.
it's like a made up fantasy land where suicide bombers and oil and camels and all that kind of shit. It's just it's a stereotype. It's a fantasy. It's not a real place. And
Yeah.
so that's part of the problem, though, is because we don't conceptualize the Middle East and North Africa as a real place. Then when we fuck it all up and
Mm.
those problems come home, then it becomes very real very quick.
Yeah, but what I'll try to say though, but Salahuddin, there's a precedent of that happen when he came in there, he didn't kill every Christian. He didn't did all that kind of stuff. Yeah, he sent all the Crusader kings and etc. back home packing. The ones that could pay at least their way out. The ones that couldn't pay, they were sold as slaves. But so there's a precedent of that happening. And like I said before as well, you can't rule in a place as a foreign interloper for forever. I mean, you have to at least. That's the
But
problem. Like I
do you
said,
think there's enough political will to do that? And what I mean by that is that there's like a push for normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel right now. There was already a push for normalizations of relationships between Egypt and Israel.
okay.
So if these things go through, then is Saudi Arabia and Egypt just waiting for the time that they are fiscally and militarily competent enough to take out Israel, or are they actually signing a truce saying like, yeah, you won this land, we're going to call it here, that way we can actually have like a normal relationship?
Well, Saudi Arabia, number one, they've always been friends with the Israelis because what they call the royal family and the Israeli top dogs, they're both golf buddies of Trump, like or the whatever the what do you call it, the higher echelon of American what do
Yeah,
you call it?
global cosmopolitan society. Yeah, like if they
Yeah,
like rubbing elbows with the richest people on the planet, they don't care who it is.
yeah, like I mean, they're both like they're both pretty okay with one another. So there's no war. There's never been a war with those people, and they're far away from one another. So like that's my biggest gripe actually with the fucking Abraham Accords, which such bullshit, man. Like what do you call people are dying left and right in Syria, people are dying left and right in Libya, and like there comes this bullshit proposal, peace in the Middle East. Peace is the only way, or like it's like, oh my god, it's like what do you call it? It's one of the biggest bullshits of political, like you know what I'm talking about, like this political
Yeah,
showmanship
it's
for
it's
big
it's a
bullshit.
it's a facade. It's not real. It's an illusion. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, like we're going to make a peace between Israel and Sudan, or Israel and UAE. People that never fought each other, they're not have borders with one another. They don't like, and these are like the rich people on top as well. Like, these are not like what they call diffusion of culture, diffusion of people.
So where would it come from then? Because if you're talking about here's the thing. So
Mm.
maybe
Yeah,
maybe since it's not coming from the ruling class, there would be enough resentment on the ground,
yeah.
from people who didn't, they're like, my government signed that agreement, but I don't believe in it. Like maybe that's a thing.
Mm.
But when you're also talking about the Middle East and North Africa, it seems like a lot of people are just trying to fucking survive. They're just
Yeah,
trying to get by. And
yeah,
so for me, like if I go left to right, if I go like Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Iran, Jordan, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon. The only people that I see like holding on to beef is going to be the people who are local, like Lebanon, like Syria, but I mean, even Jordan, I think, is a fairly modern, Western integrated, Western leaning country. So
yeah,
like the Jordanian royal family, like their special forces and military train with our special forces and military all the time, and they
yeah,
they do counterterrorism operations all the time.
yeah.
So that's my thing is like the only people that I really see who would actually try is like Iran. That's it. Like those are the only people who have enough like money and balls to do it.
Yeah, but okay. So here's the thing. So at the end of the day, what do you call it? Israel and America, especially, because they see it as a what do you call it, a conquest project. They never see this. What do you call it? They never see the people there. Like like you said before as well. Like what do you call oil lamps and etc. That
Yeah, it's
mirage.
not.
Yeah, yeah, like of Alibaba and the 47 Thieves, that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
that's what they call the Israelis as well see them, but I'm pretty sure it's even worse. I'm not. They're not what fantasizing about Alibaba. They're seeing that something even worse. I don't know what they're seeing about, but like
There
yeah,
probably some saying that, listen, I saw some Israeli TikToks about Gaza and like, damn, I was like, y'all are fucked up. Like I get it. Like 1,300 of your fucking countrymen just died or whatever, but you're literally just being fucking racist and shitty to people who are currently getting the fucking shit bombed out of them. What the fuck?
yeah.
So yeah. So you
So
you
yeah,
can evaporate a lot of public support with shit like that.
yeah. So what I'm trying to say, like, so they have to what they call it, tone down the Zionism.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Zionism and what they call the racism that comes from that country, and like and thinking that they're going to become what they call because of technological superiority, they can what they call like keep living there with like fucking people's stuff up. And a lot of the fucking the crazy shit that happened around that area, it's not because of Islam, I would say. So it's because of number one of the state of Israel and number two America. So like we've seen it before, like the Syrian war. what's his name? I don't know if you've seen this video. You know, Ephraim Halevi, like a former Mossad guy. He was on Al Jazeera and they were talking about how they were treating Al Nusra fighters in what do you call
I,
it?
I'm
Yeah.
familiar enough to know that, so I'm familiar to know that Bashir al-Assad,
Mm,
while a dictator, had a problem. If you'll indulge me just 1 minute,
mm,
um, he had a problem with young men who wanted to fight, and so and also he was too European and too secular and too modern. So
mm,
he said, in the early thousands, when the United States of America invaded, Iraq, he said, like, you want your jihadist holy war or whatever? Here you go. Go fight the United States in Iraq. And so what happened was, yeah, a lot of young men died, but a lot of young men got trained really well by jihadist fighters. And so they came back into Syria and the
mm,
United States, because they had fucking beef with Bashir al-Assad, because one, he sent young men after American forces, but then two, he's also boys with Russia, and three, he has access to one of two of Russia's warm water ports. When the
mm,
Arab Revolution kicked off, they were like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to overthrow Bashir al-Assad, install some people who are, friendly with us, and as a
mm,
result, we fucking flip flopped. We went from, drone striking Islamist militants to basically supporting Islamist militants as long as they were fighting Bashir al Assad. And so some of this was chess playing by Bashir al Assad himself, because as long as he could identify his enemies as jihadist terrorists, then that made his job easier and his ace for war obvious and correct. But then also the United States played right into that, where they were like, yeah, fuck you. Like, we'll support the Free Syria Army. But the Free Syria Army was basically like taking a healthy chunk of their money and weapons, and they were giving it to the more veteran fighters who were jihadists from northern Iraq.
yeah.
So we basically we fucked around and we found out and we destroyed a country, pretty much.
Yeah, but like this was not what he called. This was part of the model from the begin with, like the jihadists, what he called. So we did that with the Soviet Union as well.
I
Like,
have
so
I have Bluetooth headsets. Can I listen to you while I go get some water and come right back? Like, I'll continue to listen while I'm walking.
yeah, good, good, good. Yeah. Let me get some water too. We'll both take a break.
Sure. Take a break.
Yeah.
And I am back, chat.
That's all my fuck.
That wasn't a water break. That was a smoke break. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
All right, yeah, but what I try to do. It's hard. I think there's a moral system for conducting yourself in order to try to be as just as you possibly can be. And then I think there's like the pragmatic ideologies that we're all slave to. So for the Western world, it's like liberal, capitalist, mixed economy, commercial hegemony. And then I would say, like, even if you don't agree, that there are, Islamists. There are people who believe that, Islam is going to conquer the world and that it's the one true religion, that, you have to believe in, God and the last day, and that Muhammad is his messenger. And
Mhm.
until the world unites in belief, we're going to be in, perpetual war and blah, 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 blah. So
Yeah, but
so, mhm.
okay, but let me interject there. Okay, so and we talked about this before. So the Middle East was secular. The Middle East was what do you call multicultural. There was like Arab Christians.
I mean, some of it,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, no, a lot of it. Like after the what do you call it? After the end of the what do you call it, the colonialist era, a lot of it was
Sure.
secular. And Lebanon was actually mostly a Christian country. But this whole change, that's what I'm saying, by the pushing, by when you antagonize people, when you what do you call it, when you basically what Israel and America did is they killed anybody they could have a what do you call it, peace with, all the secularists, like Mohammed Mossadegh, he was a, what do you call coup d'etat.
I was literally thinking of Mossadegh as soon as you started talking. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, well, you did try to nationalize the oil, so we kind of just went with whatever fucked up shit would make sure the oil was flowing and that it would be American, it would be European and American profits that continued to flow. Yeah.
yeah. So all the secularists, all the people that that had a what do you call it, that were dreaming like coexisting with other people, all the Christians as well. All these people were pushed out because of your imperial what do you call it, adventures. So all the resistance that were
Well,
like
they
secular.
also sympathize with socialists as well. Let's be real. There was a lot of like leftist sympathy in the Middle Eastern and North African world
What's the problem
amongst the
with
secular.
what's the problem with that? Like, what is that evil? Is that evil?
Yeah.
I mean, compared
When
to compare well, yeah,
apparently
global
that's it.
capitalism, yeah, to global capitalism, yes, that is evil. But I mean, pretty sure like what they call it. So, but anyway, they pushed all those people out. But now all the resistance is left is what they call it is Islamists.
Jihadists. Yeah,
So
they're the only one who can
yeah,
fight. Yeah.
yeah. So, but like, let me go back to what they call it, way, way back to history, to a different part of the world, in Haiti. So in Haiti, there was a Toussaint Louverture, which was a very magnanimous, very rebel leader. So basically, when he conquered a place and there was a like white family there, he didn't rob them, etc. Like he protected the white women and children, and because he forgave actually his old slave master, and what he called, and give him his house back, and etc. Because and he thought of himself as a good Christian, as a what he called as same as the white man, and like what he called as a Frenchman as well. Like he thought himself as that.
Yeah.
So
So
he was very magnanimous. So Napoleon and what he called and the rest of the what he called, I don't know, one they switched up on the what he called race stuff.
mhm.
They say fuck these black people, we're just gonna put them back in chains, like this freedom shit, like so they went back over there. I don't know how many of them there. There was quite a few like Frenchmen
Mhm.
that went there. What do you call it? They signed a peace deal with Toussaint Louverture, but at the end of the day, they tricked him and then arrested him, took him back to France. So the guy that replaced him, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, was like 10 times worse.
Total fucking monster. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like and then he basically wiped out all the what they call, when he won the war, he basically wiped out all the white people, all the white population in Haiti, except the white Polish troop that served with him. So that's what you're gonna get. So basically, if you keep what you call it, pushing people and like what you call it, thinking, oh, these secularists, I'm going to get rid of them. These Christians, I'm going to get rid of them. The only people are going to get the resistance is going to be left only just like cold-hearted killers.
Mhm.
So and like messianic megalomaniacs just like yourself. So that is what you call it. And America is pushing this. European is pushing this too. I know like what you call it, they have like dirt on them and stuff like that, but it is a suicidal, like I'm saying, like the unfeathered what do you call it support of Israel has cost us, like I don't know, like many countries like to fall apart, has cost like millions and millions of refugees to go into Europe and America and the rest of the world, has
Oh yeah.
done a lot of fucking damage. And so we have to make this stop. And what do you call it, we call it, like we've tried by killing like what do you call it, by supporting revolution in Syria, by overthrowing Gaddafi, by doing this, by doing that. We haven't tried pushing the Zionists to have peace and to live there. Like we need to stop like saying, oh yeah, like the only reason like we don't have peace There's no military bases. More like, I mean, well, come on, man. How many more military bases do you need? I mean, how many more
I mean, a
people you
lot,
want to
but
kill? I mean, what?
well, hold on. So hold on. There's a couple of things that I need to untangle here.
Yeah.
The I think most Americans who are not Jews and who are not, Messianic Christians, which is also another problem. I think
Yeah.
most of them would say everybody freeze what you got, right? Like whatever it is right now, not an inch more. Every Palestinian inch that, in Gaza and the West Bank stays Palestinian. Every inch that's Israeli stays Israeli. Y'all figure out how not to kill the fuck out of each other, and that's it. And even with the settlements, I think a healthy chunk of Americans would say the 500,000 people who have moved into the West Bank over the past, like, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years or whatever, they got to go back into the borders of Israel. Now, the challenge, like when I was talking with Mossad the other week, was that the Israelis view the West Bank settlements in the mountain area in particular, whatever, they view it as like an early warning system if there's some shit about to pop off, right? And they view it as like, they're blocking, Palestinians from shooting rockets or guns down into Israel as they're up against the coast. But I mean, ideally, yeah, that would be it. The Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian state, they would have, military and security and economic control of the Palestinian territory. They would develop, they would do well. Israel would develop, they would do well. Leave each other the fuck alone. That's what most Americans and Europeans want. Here's the thing: is I don't think that's what Israel wants, and I think that's the problem. Is that when you look at a map, this is something that I disagreed with Mossad on. When you look at a map, you can't say that, like, even if Hamas only killed military aged males, even if they only killed cops, even if they only killed military people, even if they only killed soldiers, Israel would probably still be doing what it's doing right now. They would probably still be gearing up for a military occupation of Gaza. And on top of that, when you bring up, like you said, Netanyahu funding Hamas because he knew they were the worst faction, so he knew that they would do fucked up shit, so he could use that as a case for war. Everybody sees that shit. But that doesn't stop what's happening, basically. And so can
I
the
want
Middle
to
East and North
also,
Africa,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
I want to also, what do you call it, bring up then the propaganda that and the casus belli, the lies I was been told, like the mass rapes, like, the whole thing, what do you call it, the whole operation was like 10 hours, 12 hours, something like that. And they were like under, what do you call it, these soldiers in the middle of this, like, this one of the biggest military operation they were doing. These are like the commandos were taking the time off to mass rape women. And what do you call it?
But all you need is you need one IDF soldier with blood on her pants who was kidnapped and is being dragged by the hair by a Hamas person. And then you have Palestinians posting this video proudly, right? And then it gets into here's kind of my thing. This is why I side with the Zionists in this case. The argument is, oh, that's not blood from her ass or her vagina. That is blood from somebody else who got shot in the head. And so she was sitting in the pool of blood in the back of the truck. And now she's a hostage of Hamas. For me, my reaction to either one of those scenarios, whether she was raped or not, is go in there and kill every single member of Hamas. That's my reaction.
Well, I mean, look, I saw the video as well, look, and it looked like what they call her hands was bleeding, like basically she was sitting on her hands, but that's for my view. But
she still had blood shit on her sweatpants.
I guess so, yeah. But yeah, like there was blood all over the place. Her face was bleeding. I think she has a cut on her head as well. And like, yeah, she was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure she got beaten up pretty good. But we're talking about mass rapes, so like these are things you don't just say because
if you want to say there's exaggeration. So for instance, 40 beheaded babies. This became like another meme in the news cycle. So what I think probably happened is a lot of families got gunned down. Whether or not they shot infants, I would have to see the footage or whatever. I haven't gone to Hamasmassacre.com yet, but maybe I will. But anyways, like shooting an infant is bad enough for me. and cutting the head off of one infant is bad enough for me. So
Yeah.
as soon as you, and by the way, here's the difference. I understand that it doesn't make a difference to people who are sympathetic to Palestinians because they see right now, you're watching the video and you see a house that's been destroyed by an Israeli bomb and you see babies being pulled out of the rubble, dead, right? You see
Yeah.
children this big, you know, they're infants, they're brand new born and they're dead and they're in hospital stretchers, right? So to a Muslim, they say, Hamas doesn't have the technology. They don't have the military capacity. They don't have the international support. They don't have the money. So as a result, they fight the way that they need to fight in order to prosecute the war. And at the end of the day, is it different to walk into the kibbutz and shoot people than it is to drop a bomb on a neighborhood and kill dozens upon dozens of civilians? I've heard this 2 or 3 times, right?
Yeah.
For me, there is a difference. And I
Mm.
understand that this is a privilege in the Western world, but there is a difference.
Mhm.
The difference is if Israel, let's say that there's a Hamas rocket team, they're setting up rockets, they're shooting into Israel.
Yeah.
They drop a 500-pound bomb on the rocket team, and then that kills the rocket team, and then it collapses a house next door.
Mhm.
That family being dead is not the same as walking into their house with a gun and shooting them all intentionally in the face.
Mhm.
And there's a moral difference there from a Western perspective.
Mm. Well, I got you, but like what do you call it? The Israeli army does that as well a lot of times. I mean, when they go into the West
Like
Bank,
just
when they
walk
go
in
into,
and shoot everybody in the house.
I mean, I don't think they give a fuck. I mean, there was also videos of what do you call it, of Israeli snipers just sniping what do you call protesters. They were just coming at the border. Like these are unarmed protesters, and they was like taking the what do you call it, scores. They're like, oh yeah, I got him, oh, look, nice shot, that kind of stuff.
The Israeli defense, and by the way, I'm not defending this shit. Like you
Yeah.
see somebody throwing a rock, they're 300 fucking yards away, they're throwing a rock at a fence, and then you hit him with a fucking 5.56 or a 308, and you're fucking ecstatic about it. Then you're kind of a fucking asshole and a piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
What I've heard from Israelis who are defending their tactics and all that kind of stuff is that Palestinians will come up right to the border fences or whatever, and they'll shake them down, they'll rip stuff up, they'll try to get through the fence, et cetera, et cetera. And so, in order, and I'm not saying this, we're not talking about the same thing. I'm just describing something that Israelis told me, is that they'll take a 22 rifle, which is a smaller caliber bullet, and they will literally walk up behind, not behind, but they're across the fence or whatever, and they'll aim down and they'll shoot the people in the legs. And for them, if they hit an artery and the Palestinian dies, it is what it is. And then if the person is just wounded, then, they're no longer breaking through the fence or whatever. But to me, I'm just picturing myself as an Israeli. If part of my security guard duties is shooting teenagers in the leg with 22 caliber rifle rounds, and I don't care whether or not they live or die, that would be indicative to me that there's a long-term problem that's going to go bad. That would be my assumption.
Yeah, look, it's a very racist regime. Like they're like the hatred and that. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the problem they always talk about Hamas, its charter, and etc. Boy, I mean, what the Zionists want and think, like not every Zionist, I don't think thinks that, but like what they see the world, especially Netanyahu and like I don't know what's Ben Gvir and like
Likud,
yeah,
something like that.
and there's even somebody worse than Netanyahu who's called Ben Gvir, who's a Kurdish Jew. But like like some of these people, like their mentality and how they view like the what do you call it, their neighbors, it is fucking wild. And
Yeah, it's not human. Yeah, they don't think of their neighbors as human. Yeah. But this is like the liberal thing, right? So the liberal thing is that unfortunately for the liberals, you're all human, right? So that's where if the Zionists are being evil and they're coming up with genocidal bullshit in order to kill every single Palestinian so they can displace them or take the land or whatever, then that's fucking evil because Palestinians are human beings who deserve some level of dignity and respect and life and self-actualization. And then if Hamas or Islamist militants, shoot some babies in the face or whatever, then that's like a crime against everything like the liberal value of human life tells us. And so as a result, we look at the political. Sorry, real quick. This is kind of important. This is something that Sam Harris said, another famous Jew. Is that we can make a moral equivalence between like tactics and death and all that kind of stuff, but we can't make a moral equivalence between outcome. And so there is the Likud party, and I'm sure Benjamin Netanyahu and the guy who's worse, Ben Gavir or whatever, who are genocidal towards Palestinians and all that kind of stuff. But there's also people who like, if the West Bank was to organize a border right now, 67 borders, let's just say. Let's just go with 67 borders.
Okay.
And everybody was to chill the fuck out and go do their own thing. Everybody would fucking win. But we can't, because we got genocidal maniacs on both sides. And so as a result, somebody has to win. That's the other thing. Somebody has to win, because otherwise it remains unresolved. And by the way, here's the thing. You're talking to me about the on the ground resentment towards Israel and how it's unsustainable, and how if they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to create some of the most horrific shit we've ever seen in the world, because they've killed all these secular people who are willing to negotiate. And as a result, they're only leaving the hardcore jihadists. What I think is going to happen is that Israel is probably going to find some kind of like settlement ratio in the West Bank that they're okay with. And then they're going to say, whenever the game is rigged in their favor, then they'll stop. And that's it. And that's the only way that the conflict is going to stop.
No, but there's more players than the Palestinians. So the Palestinians are the forefront of the battle. But there's Hezbollah, there's the Syrian government, and there's Iran, and what do you call it? There's those countries. And Hashid al-Shabi as well, I think, in Iraq.
But are they militarily competent enough to do what they want to do?
To Israel? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if it goes down, what do you call it? Because this is what do you call a battle for survival, right? It's a battle for it's a what do you call it? It's a messianic battle. So it's not it's not the battles the secularists would take over. Like the PLO wouldn't fight this battle, or the PFLP wouldn't fight this battle. But yeah, crazy religionists would fight this battle. So, and that is why I have a big problem with what do you call it, with the USA and Europe, especially Europe, and they're fucking all the time. Israel has the right to defend this. Couldn't you just God damn it, can you do something about this, man? Because all this is going to lead us into into cataclysm. And it's already what do you call it, caused so many deaths. And I am actually trying to think maybe there is some what do you call it, there are all the religious significance of what do you call it, end days and stuff like that really does what do you call it, signify in this land, because
I've been trying to ignore that part of my brain for a really long time, because what was it? There was a city that ISIS held that was part of Muhammad's prediction, where he was like, all the armies of the world will come to this city and they'll fight during the end times and all that kind of shit. And I was like, motherfucker, ISIS, are you ushering in the apocalypse, you son of a bitch? And there's always the possibility, because if there's an Iranian who believes fervently that they need to usher in the end times, and then they either lead an army that goes unchallenged, or they use a nuclear weapon or a weapon of mass destruction or something like that, and then that kicks off some kind of high-level conflict between all these countries, and then there's massacres and ethnocides and genocides and nuclear exchanges and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it could be hundreds of thousands, millions, if not billions of people. We could destroy the fucking planet over this little piece of land, right? Yeah. So,
but I also wanted to put I think nowadays, I don't know, I mean, I wasn't there when the 1100s, when the Crusaders was going on. They were pretty brutal too. But I would think that they had more chivalry and more what do you call it, humanity, and more respect for one another. Especially what do you call it, that was the thing actually between what do you call it, Salahuddin and Richard the Lionheart. Probably he was French, but that's what it showed, because it was a time of what do you call, people were butchering each other, and and so they showed a little bit of chivalry, and I think that is going on nowadays as well. This is becoming all out what do you call, hatred, and
you'll see sometimes that sometimes I think we paint those time periods with rose-tinted glasses, and we look to the heroes. By the way, the reason why we talk about Richard the Lionheart, the reason why we talk about Saladin, is because they were, they were the exemplars of their time. They were the exceptional people who climbed to the ranks and had, like, despite seeing all that humanity could offer in the way of horror, they maintained some level of dignity and nobility and grace and mercy and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why we respect these people. But I do kind of want to, we're about to hit the 90-minute mark, so I kind of want to wrap it up. But I want to kind of make, like, I don't want to say a prediction, but kind of like the way that I see it, and then I kind of want to ask you what policy you would implement to kind of like end things in a way that you think would be acceptable to people who share your perspective.
Yeah.
And so my perspective is, I think that Israel will have military control of Gaza. If they want to continue the conflict, that way they can slowly push Palestinians out of the territory, then they'll just maintain it as a shithole. They won't do any infrastructure investment. They'll just let people suffer and die and move out and all that kind of stuff. And that will effectively be an ethnocidal or genocidal project to move people out of Gaza. Now, maybe they won't walk in and shoot every single man, woman, and child, but they will try to make the living conditions so poor that people move out. The other option is they actually develop it and then try to turn it into a Palestinian pier. That would be interesting. Then, when they have settlements that are to their favor, where they can control the West Bank in a way that they militarily believe is necessary for the survival of the state, they will. There's going to be two things here. One, the secularists will have to stand up and say, "This is enough. This is all we need in order to survive." And then there will probably still be parties like the Likud. There will probably still be messianic religious zealots who still want to go take the rest. And it's actually going to take internal political will to stop them and to not support them in that. So that's what Israel needs to do. One thing that you've said that I think people need to particularly pay attention to before I kind of give you the last thought is that you are saying that we are sowing the bloodshed of the future right now. That you didn't say that exactly, but I think it's true. And if you look at Osama bin Laden's manifesto immediately after 9/11, one of the things that he cited was the fact that Israel went into Lebanon. They supported the Christian Phalanges militia. The Christian Phalanges militia slaughtered 2,300 Lebanese civilians overnight, and it was the United States 7th Fleet that covered the withdrawal of Israel. And so as a result, he held Israel responsible for the slaughter, and he held the United States responsible for the slaughter because we backed Israel's play. There's other reasons why. But yeah, I agree with you that in the next 5 to 10 years, we could see jihadist terrorist attacks that are justified in the events that are unfolding right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not supporting all the jihadists either, but what do you call it? And by that, I mean, like, what do you call it? Because some of them, like, what do you call it? Yeah, some of them have actual legitimacy, like Hezbollah has legitimacy and etc. But what I want to say, yeah, where's Al Qaeda and where's ISIS and all this what do you call it, shebang? Because strange, because what do you call it? Israel's going to Gaza and, like you about to say, like, probably going to wipe it out. And not a word from Ayman al-Zawahiri, not a word from any of the ISIS guys. That is very strange. I just want to put that out there. But for what I want to, what do you call it, say about what should be happening is that
you would think if there were like leaders who weren't controlled by anybody else that they would have something to say about it. That's interesting. No, that and for me that's like legitimately interesting because like my less conspiratorial brain is like, well, if they pipe up too much and if they say too much and if they send people to fight, they're going to end up on the hit list, right? So maybe it's like a self-preservation thing. But then there's also a part of me that's like, this is jihadism against your greatest enemy on the most holy land in the world. Why do you not at least have some like comment? Like we stand with the brave fighters of Hamas or whatever because they're fighting on holy ground and Israel's full of shit and all that. Why wouldn't you expect that to come out? Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'll shut up.
Yeah. So like their money goes from Saudi Arabia, Qatar. So anyway, but what I want to say though that I think the West should abandon, not abandon, but what do you call it? not what do you call fully support Israel and this what do you call it and the Zionistic and messianic what do you call it endeavors, because it's going to lead us into trouble, more wars, more bloodshed, more immigrants into Europe, more wars and more bloodshed and terrorist attacks into Europe as well. Nobody wants that. And and China actually what do you call it Israel is actually what do you call it selling our technology and giving it to China. So I mean, really, Israel is not being a good friend, what they call to America or to Europe, and it's what they call it. You know, you can have friends and you can have best friends, but once they're like, I don't know, in a drug binge and like going to what they call it, they're going to jump off the cliff. You don't jump off the cliff with them too. You try to save them. You try to hold them back from the cliff. So if you want to do what is good for Israel, and you want to do good for what is for yourself as well, you will stop this bullshit, this messianic Zionistic project, which is not going to work. Might survive another, I don't know, 75 years, but sooner or later, especially with nuclear weapons and etc., is going to end up badly for all of us. So,
there's a significant portion that I agree with. There's a minor portion that I disagree with, and the part that I agree with is us taking a unapologetic Israeli side is bad for everybody, because then basically Israel gets to do an ethnocide in Gaza. Maybe they feel brazen enough to do an ethnocide in the West Bank. As a result, you have breeding resentment between not just Palestinians, but people all over the Middle East and North Africa who are sympathetic to the Palestinian plight. You have a Palestinian diaspora. As a result, you have people from the Middle East and North Africa moving all over the world with them, with their resentment, justified and unjustified. There's going to be jihadist attacks. So you're not just talking about, you're not just talking about, Israel in their current conflict. You're also talking about the aftershocks of that conflict. And so I think, while not bowing to organizations like ISIS or Al Qaeda or Hamas, I think that you need to be reasonable and not, like you said, kill all the people who are willing to negotiate for a better future just because you want the crazy people to attack you, so you have a better case for war so you can attack them and then achieve your geopolitical goal. You're treating human beings as sacrificial pawns. And I think we can see that even in recent history, even in recent American history. We can see how the American people were played as pawns for the war in Iraq. So even if you ultimately believe in the overall political project, you shouldn't achieve it by disgusting means.
And what do you call it? And people are waking up, and I'm glad you are what do you call it here, because most people back in the day were like, oh, back in the, I don't know, 1990s, 2000, even like early 2000s, oh, Israelis are such victims. Israel don't know anything. And this is what also Amy Schumer tried to portray, like, Israelis are the minorities. The Israelis are this and that. No way, man. These are some real motherfucking killers, man. So, and they too.
Can I say, as a white person though, I'm happy that so what it seemed like for a while, not trying to be rude to my Jewish friends, but it seemed like for a while there's a lot of secular, atheistic, anti-racist Jewish progressives. And whenever somebody would just say the most abhorrent anti-white racist shit you've ever heard in your entire life, there would be some fucking, Jewish progressive to come out and tell you why it was okay, because there was some like intersectional power dynamic mathematics that made the bigotry of, oppressed people okay. And what I'm hoping is that a healthy chunk of not just Jewish academics, but academics in general, they see how Jews are typically like a protected minority because they've been oppressed in the past, they've been slaughtered in the past, they've been killed in the past, this, that, they have historical oppression, this, that, the other, but how the intersectional formula was kind of flipped on its head. And as a result, people are now excusing the slaughter of civilians in Israel because they're like, well, the Israelis are wrong and they're settler colonialist and blah, 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 blah. And so I hope that the being dehumanized in this way leads to people realizing that the dehumanization is evil across the board. And so that's something that I'm going to fight against, because obviously, like, I've told you to your face, if Israel walks into Gaza and kills every single member of Hamas, I'm going to sleep like a fucking baby at night. But that being said, the dehumanization of Palestinians in general is an evil that's going to breed more evil. And so you can't dismiss that and just be like, oh yeah, well, they elected Hamas and they never fought them, so whatever. If a bunch of Palestinian kids get blown up, who gives a fuck? If you say that shit, you're inviting more evil into the world. So
Yeah, but I want to leave this with the caveat that with Hamas, that not all resistance fighters. I mean, I know we watch Hollywood movies. Han Solo. Who else is a good what do you call resistance fighters?
even the new resistance fighters from Rogue One, yeah, the one and the ones from Rogue One are more terroristy than the original Star Wars ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So not all resistance fighters are good people. Not all resistance fighters are what do you call it? Are nice. All the partisans as well. I think in France and stuff like that, and Italy did some
Oh
stuff.
yeah, they did all sorts of fucked up shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe not as fucked up as Hamas. But anyway, but I don't know. I don't know all the story about partisans. But these are the resistance, and that's why I support the resistance against the empire. And that's the thing, because Israelis and I think Jews, like in general, have no longer oppressed class, but have their own imperialistic project going on, and it's a big one, and they're very good at it. So that is why people are coming up. That's why people are waking up to that. So I mean,
this is actually. Sorry, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, and it's a messianic one too, and it's a dangerous one too. And look, you can have messianic empires back in the day, fine. They're of course they're still brutal. Fuck me, but yeah, like messianic empires are brutal, or just But nowadays with nuclear weapons, you're putting us all in danger. So quit it with that shit. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, no, messianic cults are a lot less dangerous when you have bows and arrows and crossbows and swords than when you have fucking nuclear weapons. So yeah. And then something that's interesting, I just want to point it out before we wrap up, because this actually this parallels into my perception on Star Wars as well. The Empire, Thrawn, one of the characters. I'm not like a huge Star Wars guy, but I've read like enough. Thrawn, he's not big into the Force. He's not big into slaughtering people for slaughtering's sake. He's not into any of that kind of stuff. At least the book version of Thrawn was a pragmatic villain who thought that the Empire was necessary to maintain a sense of order and to end slavery and bring justice and impose an order that was good for everyone. That's what he was trying to achieve. But there is something very disturbing and tempting about power, where you can always justify the evils that you commit in the name of order and justice and all that kind of stuff. So the reason why empires collapse is because they create a mythology that they don't live up to. And so as a result, nobody respects the mythology that they're created for themselves. And as a result, they collapse. And so I think that's part of the spiritual challenge of the United States right now is we have a mythology of being the world policeman, and we saved the Jews in the Holocaust, even though we didn't. And, we fought Nazi Germany, even though we came a little bit late, and we fought Imperial Japan, even though actually Imperial Japan was fine.
We defeated handily.
Yeah, but it was a fucked up campaign. Yeah, maybe the nukes were a little fucked up. So there's all these things that get added to it where it's like you shouldn't fall in love with you can love the best parts of yourself, but don't fall in love with your mythology to the point that you think you're infallible and also to justify your own evil. And I think it's a really challenging thing. People like black and white moral narratives. And this actually goes back to Saladin and Richard the Lionheart. I promise I'll shut up eventually.
No problem.
In order for Saladin and Richard the Lionheart to have chivalry, they had to recognize that their enemy was human and had virtues and had a sense of nobility that was worthy of respect. And so as a result, now they still killed the shit out of each other, but they started with that base understanding of respect and humanity and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what I would say is as terrible as war is, don't lose your humanity. That would be my takeaway.
All right, thanks, man. And what do you call it? I can't wait to read the comments on this video.
Yeah, me either. But no, it was a blast. Thank you for coming. Thank you for DMing me and suggesting we do this. I really do appreciate it.
We should do what do you call it? Panel debates another time, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. And I have friends who are already in a part of my community that I think you would get along with, and I have people in the debate community that I'm sure you would get along with. So yeah, I'll absolutely I'll keep an ear out, and if you want to get introduced to some folk, I'll do it.
All right, man. Thank you. Have a good night. Peace.
You too. Bye.